John, let's get to Mike Gill, who's going to join us now here on Birds 365. See what Mike has to say as we're one day out from the NFL draft. Joining us now is Mike Gill from 97.3 ESPN. Give him a follow at Mike Gill Show and go and subscribe to his YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show. Mike, how you doing on this Wednesday, brother? We are one day away from the NFL draft.
Finally, right? Finally, we're getting this NFL draft. We're ready to go, man. I was on a show last night where they do a mock draft, and I was the picker for the Eagles. And somehow Walter Nolan was on the board for me. So I did my best version of Howie Roseman and sprinted to the board and took Walter Nolan. And the host of the show was laughing about how this always works out for the Eagles. Like, how could Walter Nolan possibly, you have 31 reporters and people who picked before me, and somehow this guy made it to the Eagles. And it's like, this is the story of the Eagles all the time. They get these teams that just let you take the player that you shouldn't be able to get.
Yeah, it's happened for a number of years. Happened with Jalen Carter, happened with Nolan Smith,
which is funny, John, because
which
is funny because the guy texted me, he said, last year we had you on and you took Cooper DeJean. They ended up getting Cooper, but not where you thought in the second round. He's like, how did somebody let them get him? And the other pick, because it was a Vegas-based show, they were harping about how the Eagles got Jalen Carter and the Raiders didn't have him on the board, right? They didn't have Jalen Carter. They took him off their draft board because of the off-the-field stuff. So
a lot of gutless teams out there, Mike. A lot of dumb teams.
Yeah.
So, I asked Jeremiah that on his conference call. I asked him, because there's a lot of hype. And I would say of all these goofy mock drafts, mine included, I'm not there's more Walter Nolan to the Eagles than anybody else if you add them up. And I asked Jeremiah, I said, there's a lot of hype about Walter Nolan falling to the Eagles. And he was like, I don't see that.
Yeah.
But then he pivoted back and said exactly what you just said. He said, but I wouldn't have said, if you would have asked me that about Nolan Smith at 30, he would have said no chance. If you asked me Cooper DeJean at 40, he would have said no chance. Jalen Carter at 9 even. No chance. You would think somebody would have had the guts to take the best player in the draft before number 9. So, bad teams have let good players go to the Eagles. And it used to be that way with the Ravens. It used to be that way. It used to be a joke with the Steelers. People keep letting good players go to Pittsburgh. Now it's people keep letting good players get to Philadelphia. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and, I don't really even remember who else was on the board. They send me a list of all the people who have been picked already, and I'm looking through, and I'm going up and down the text, and I'm like, did nobody take Walter Nolan in this pick? I just kept going up and down, so I don't even know who else was available around there, but I said –
well, you were right. If Walter Nolan's there, they're taking Walter Nolan. Which
the conversation kind of spun off to, the take that Roseman likes to trade, he likes to move. Would they stay at 32? Is there a spot where Walter Nolan might fall? And to make sure they got him, they make the move up. I guess that would be a storyline that starts as he starts to fall. Where's that number where they say, we got to move up to go get him. We can't wait till 32 because this is the guy that we want. We're going to go to, is it 22, 23, 25? That would be the storyline, I guess, that would start to emerge on draft night.
Yeah, and I think they would go up and get him to a certain, level. Maybe you can push it to 24 because everybody knows Minnesota only has 4 picks and they want out. But you're going to have a lot of competition. I think the Giants are going to try to come back in to get a quarterback.
This is where having 32 and this quarterback class becomes like it was in 2017, where the Ravens called you because they wanted Lamar Jackson. We actually talked about this scenario last night. If Sanders starts to fall and he's there, and the Giants now say, we didn't take him the first time, but now he's on the board. Can we get ourselves back in to take LeBron's kid? I mean, not LeBron's kid. Deion's kid. Same situation, right? I mean, was this guy really getting drafted if it wasn't Deion's kid?
I think it's like 50-50. He doesn't go in the first round. I think the Giants might go back up. In fact, I would bet on the Giants going back up to get a quarterback, but I think it might be Milroe. I think it might be Milroe. And I think Jackson Dart's going to Pittsburgh. There is a good chance. There is a good chance that he does not go in the first round.
Yeah, and there's a good chance, right, that at 32, there's a couple of the quarterbacks that you just mentioned there. And are these teams going to say, we want that 5th year? And, Philly's willing to move as always. And listen, going back to the Walter Nolan point, if you are wanting to make sure you get him, we know it's been well, publicized. The Phillies, the Eagles have 20 picks over the next 2 years. So they got to try to do something if there's a guy they really want. The question would be, Walter Nolan seems to be the obvious one. If he's fallen and he's there, but is there somebody that's not being buzzed about, an edge rusher or something that also would be someone if they started to dip a little bit? I know Mike Green, he's got the off the field stuff. If he starts to fall, do the Eagles do enough background homework on him to say, hey,
I don't think Howie wants those questions. I haven't heard a damn thing about Mike Green.
And I think Howie, the kind of guy that usually comes out of right field, though, right?
That's true, but
that's what I'm wondering, Mike. There's so much silence around this. I feel like I'm wondering. I said to John pre-show.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Are you hearing anything about a splash or something? I don't know what Howie's thinking.
You talk about 3D chess, make that 5D, 4D, whatever you want to call it. If he's doing interviews talking about not even looking at players who've had some allegations, domestic violence, whatever you want to call it, allegations, and then he doubles back to throw people off the scent to take Mike Green, that's some 4D chess. I don't think he wants to answer those questions.
What's the story that comes out the other day about how Big Dom is the best in the league at doing his homework, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, certainly that's what'll lean on.
Absolutely is. We trust our process. We've done our homework. He also.
I'll tell you what. That's the best pass rusher in the draft, Mike Green.
17.5 sacks. Yes, absolutely. Off the field stuff is why he's probably not being talked about as a possibly top 10 pick. Yeah. Mike Green, Marshall. He was at Virginia before that, so it's not like, hey, why is this guy at Marshall? He was at Virginia. Had some stuff in high school, off the field problems, and then I think it's the second time.
Yeah, well, you can go back to Randy Moss. Why is he at Marshall? Well, he was at Notre Dame and Florida State, but
yes.
Had some issues. So,
and look, and that would be the story. Hey, we've done our homework, blah, blah. And he also has the leg to stand on of, look, we haven't had a player get in trouble since Josh Huff. What was that the last time someone had an off the field incident that was of
Daryl Worley?
Yeah. Baby.
Oh yeah. We brought that up. So Daryl Worley, when was that? 2020?
Oh, there's some other guy. I mean, they're little dust ups.
I'm talking about stuff that makes the national headlines, where you're talking about it all day on the talking head shows, and you're spending an hour here, talking about what to do with this guy. That has just not happened. So they do have a little bit of leeway to say, hey, we've done our homework. We have a guy that we feel confident in, that nothing's.
I'll tell you what, if they do that, I'll shake Howie's hand. Because he's thrown me off the scent if they're taking Mike Green.
Well, and Walter Nolan isn't he's had some incident. The reason why we're talking about Walter Nolan,
but his stuff is very nebulous. Like he transferred a lot. Who gives a shit? I mean, that's the modern college football lens. I mean, his transfers go back to high school and stuff like that, but. I mean, it's all, to me, that's people saying, oh, I don't know about this kid, to try to get people off the scent.
Yeah, is he uncoachable? Is he malcontent? Stuff to that.
Yeah, he missed some practices, things like that. That's more, that strikes me as more of, oh, this kid's really talented, let's say. He misses a bunch of and he may have missed a bunch of maybe he's an asshole. I don't know. That's one of the things we don't the two biggest things none of us know, Mike, is medical and the behind the scenes stuff. So I'm not saying it's not possible that people have real concerns about Walter Nolan, but it's all nebulous. It's not like I said the same thing about Jalen Carter, who had a much bigger situation. I'm not trying to downplay it, but I say all the time, the minute you meet Jalen Carter, he's not Al Capone. He's not Robin Banks.
Yeah.
He's just a young, immature kid who made a big mistake, and he's turned out to be that. He's that's really nice. He's polite.
That's where at 32, you're in a spot where, people start falling because of these. When you have the talent and you're still there, you're thinking, why is this guy still there? There's usually something else that comes with it. The Eagles have done a really good job over the years of, listen, you and I have had these conversations, John, for years. Very few times is our conversation about a guy getting trouble off the field. Yeah, there's been a few, and they're not high-profile players generally. It's not like, hey, the star of the team, wielded a pistol in the middle of a rave. Like that those things just have not happened with this team. And look, you don't see that around the league all that often, although there are some higher-profile players that are either – many of them seem to be wide receivers who have some stuff, but not even like getting themselves in trouble with the law, like for the most part. Yes, there are a few instances, but I think the Eagles do their homework. They feel pretty good. So if you heard his name called, Mike Green, it probably means they feel extremely confident that everything off the field, which, by the way, is not minor. His stuff is not minor off the field.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Mike Green was weird because he was just volunteering information at the combine, which was interesting because people try to hide that stuff. But, well, I got in trouble in Virginia. It's like, well, all right. But yeah, great player. I've said, he's way ahead of the curve.
Now, if Mike Green was there and Walter Nolan was there, what do you do?
I'm taking Mike Green.
Well, I think
if everything clears out from Big Dom.
I think the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm saying all things that stuff is checked out. He's on their draft board, and they're the two.
I think personally, I think they have a bigger need at edge rusher, and from a pure football perspective, I take Mike Green. I think the Eagles would take Nolan.
I think. Do you guys think Mike Green's a top 10 talent in this draft?
I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he's got the best. Like most young pass rushers they have to develop counter moves and stuff. He's like an old school starting pitcher. He's got like 5 pitches.
I'll tell you, the other guy, I know he's a local guy, but Ezaraku is another guy that I think is underrated. I like him, because he played at Boston College, not a football factory, but he's another guy who's got a lot of tools in the tool chest. He's got a lot of moves, very athletic. I mean, he's a guy that I think is going to drop. I don't know that he'll be there at 32, possibly though, but it goes back to the question.
Talking toolsy, you're talking Shamar Stewart. Just from a tool standpoint.
All right.
That guy's
well,
built
my question to throw into the mix was, and you kind of answered it, but you're saying you think that, okay, they have the pick of the guy that, like last year, okay, they had the pick of who they wanted. It could have been Quinyon Mitchell, who they took, or the guy from that went to Detroit from Alabama.
Terrion Arnold.
They had the choice. They could have taken either guy. They picked Mitchell over Arnold. It seems like they made the right decision so far. We shall see. If they have an edge rusher that's the top guy on their board and a D tackle who's the top guy on the board, you think that they need the edge guy over the tackle?
I think they right now as their off-season roster, I think edge rusher's a bigger need than defensive tackle.
Because they did address edge rusher in free agency. They did not address tackle in free agency.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of excitement in the building over Moro Ajomo. I think there's they remember what addressing in free agency means this year. Technically, what's the difference from addressing edge with Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche and addressing tight end with Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson. A couple million more dollars. So that tells you something about Ojulari. But they're all lottery tickets. I mean, I've said it pretty consistently, Mike. They're not going into a season with their top 4 edge rushers being Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Azeez Ojulari, and Josh Uche. I don't believe that. Not for 1 second. I don't believe that. They value
Don't
the
forget
position
Bryce
too
Huff.
much. Well, yeah, we and it could be Bryce Huff. If you can't get anybody, because remember, you're at the mercy of other people here. And there could be 7 edge rushers that go in the first round. And they might all be gone. If there's a run, they might all be gone. And then they'll still get an edge rusher down the board some point, but it'll be more of the Landon Jackson type who's not going to probably help you right away, not going to be explosive, that type of thing. And if that's the way it shakes out, then they'll start looking at other avenues, I believe, whether it's trades down. If you look at the A.J. Brown year, where they made the big trade, and just look at their history of May signings and June signings and after draft signings, whether it's Bradbury, if you want to go all the way back to Chris Long and guys like that, LeGarrette Blount, and then the trade of C.J. Gardner-Johnson at the cut down to 53. Like, they will continue to try to address whatever they don't get. If they don't get a safety, all of a sudden after the draft, you might see Justin Simmons here. So if they can't get an edge rusher at the top of this draft, I can't tell you how, but they're going to address it further. They're not going into a season with how it looks right now.
Yeah. Well, and there's a outside, I don't want to say outside possibility. Anything's possible, we know, with Howie Roseman and the way he likes to do things and the amount of picks that they have. But I guess it's still possible that on draft night, they take a look at what's there when it's their turn to pick. If they really want an edge rusher, they have the ammunition to make a trade to try to go get a veteran established pass rusher. And some of them seem to be available still.
Well, while I say that, I still think they like Walter Nolan better. Walter Nolan's, I would say, is their guy. I said it about Jalen Carter, that the most Eaglesy pick in this draft, Eaglesy, I've created that word. And that's understanding at 32. I'm not talking about number 1 because they're like everybody else. They think Abdul Carter's the best player, and if he's not, it's Travis Hunter. But I'm saying where they're starting in the realm of possibility, Walter Nolan is the most Eaglesy pick of this draft. That's how I would describe it.
This is what I don't like about not what I don't like, but what I think is complicated about Jordan Davis, right? Like we just said, do we need defensive tackles? I mean, to be fair, we did spend 2 first-round draft picks on defensive tackles. I know he plays a different position. He plays nose, but from a team-building philosophy, you did spend 2 draft picks on interior defensive linemen, and you still feel like you need another one after the departure of Milton Williams. I mean, that's not ideal.
To be fair, they drafted Milton Williams in the 3rd round too. So it says they think they need 3. And Jordan Davis is on the end of his deal. So they're also saying, look,
I don't have a problem with that. You got to constantly repopulate.
Yeah, the draft
corner. They're still talking about taking a corner.
Well, they lost 2 in free agency this year. But Jordan Davis, remember, he's in the last year of the deal. They didn't pick up the 5th-year option. So you also have to be looking at the possibility that we might let him walk. And you've got Moro Ojomo here, who was he a 7th-round pick, Moro?
7th, yeah.
Right. So I know that doesn't seem like a lot of draft capital, but he was a guy they drafted. Milton Williams in the 3rd. So, yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise at all because, Jordan Davis, it's not like he's locked up long-term here, and those 2 guys are taking up a lot of the snaps. Even Jordan Davis being here, Milton Williams being gone, and Morrow had a lot of snaps last year as that other guy, but does his snap counts go up, or do they want a guy to kind of take Milton's snaps and keep Morrow at the snaps he was at?
think it depends. If you get Walter Nolan, yeah. I mean, Walter Nolan's day one replacement for Milton Williams. If you don't, then, I think
But the one thing is, none of those guys are really a replacement for Jordan Davis and what he does.
No.
Right.
And they still have to May 1st or May 2nd, whatever the date is, to pick up the 5th-year option. And by the way, for people on the 5th-year option, he's still here this year, even if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they will, simply because $13 million is not that expensive now. So I think ultimately the answer isn't whether they pick it up or not. It's whether they work out an extension, because that becomes more difficult. Then you have to value, what's he worth? What's it worth to have a 2-down run stuffer? Is it worth 18 million? Is it worth 20 million? What's it worth?
Yeah.
That's the more difficult conversation. But yeah, they play different positions. So they can't replace. In a lot of ways, they've been looking for a backup, but it's not easy to find a backup. They don't have a backup for Jordan Davis. They haven't had a backup for Jordan Davis.
No.
And when he doesn't play, they have to play differently. You saw it in Jonathan Gannon's first year when they didn't have a nose tackle. People didn't even know they were playing the Big Fangio scheme.
Well, and that's now we've added another name to the mix, Kenneth Grant. If he's there, he could be a Jordan Davis-esque type of player.
Yes, he could, but I think the Eagles have learned their lesson. They're not taking a nose tackle.
Correct. Well, I'm just saying, if you were saying, hey, we need a replacement for Jordan Davis, we don't want to pick up that 5th year, this is the guy right here, we like him, boom. Now, that's where you can maybe drop back. Although there's a lot of mock drafts that have him going right in that 29-30 area.
Yeah, I got him going. I'm going to do my one and only first round mock draft today, but I tentatively have them going into the Chargers at like 22, 23, wherever they are, who lost Poona Ford. So they need that big body. For the Eagles, I mean, one of the guys they brought in was Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. It's more of a second-round guy. If they draft somebody like that, then it's an indication, all right, well, they're going to move on from Jordan Davis probably after next year. And try to move forward with him and get cheaper at that position. I'm not saying I advocate it, but boy, they got to pay. I mean, Cam Jurgens this week, Mike, they got to pay a lot of people a lot of money.
Yeah. And 13 million, I think, is what you said for Jordan Davis. Just doesn't seem like the ROI is quite there, unless
that's the 5th-year option. It'll be much higher than that if they work out an extension.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difficult part of it.
It's expensive to be good sometimes.
It's very expensive to be good. And at some point, I guess we should talk about Dallas Goedert.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Dallas Goedert's back. Anyway, at this point, I'm leaning towards he's just not coming back. I don't see how it works out.
Well, I think we touched on this a little bit last week, but the question of, did they just not want to pay him that number? Does he not want to play at that number? Like, if he said, guys, I'm willing to play on the deal, like, did they say, no, we don't want you to? Where are we with the structure of the deal and who's against it?
Well, I think both sides are against it because his cap number's too high. He's got the 5th highest cap number on the team. And the other guys ahead of him are Jalen Hurts and 3 All-Pros, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, and AJ. That's it. And then Dallas. So the cap number's too high. The Eagles want to get that down. And the money's too low, and Dallas wants to get that up. So, that's what happens when you're on the final year of a deal and the guaranteed money is dried up. Happened with Slay, and they worked it out once. They weren't willing to work it out this time. Seems to me, Mike, they're not willing to work it out with Dallas Goedert. Or maybe Dallas is not willing to work it out. Could be both sides.
And then it works in the next part of a conversation is, okay, tight end at that area. They've taken tight ends in the second round, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. Do you start to now almost mimic what you did in 2017? You trade 32, you move back, you get an extra second round pick, a fourth round pick, and then you use that second round pick to move up and get the tight end that you really want, or that you like in round number 2. And the question is, though, with Goddard, they drafted him. He didn't have to take over right away. He kind of was the other guy behind Ertz for a little while, and you got little flashes of him to the point where for 2-3 years, those two guys coexisted. This guy would have to come in essentially and have to be the guy almost instantaneously. Does that guy exist in the second round?
Probably not, I would say. Not this year.
The biggest thing there is, like, why haven't we heard of anybody? They haven't brought anybody in. I mean, not that we've heard, at least. Like, that tight end position, it feels weird to me. And that's where I'm wondering if they're holding something close to the vest there, and maybe they'll, I don't know, trade for the dude in Vegas or whatever, Michael Mayer or whatever his name is. Something's got to happen at tight end now.
You would think. Unless you can Josh Sweat it and convince Dallas to play for less money for one more year. And then he leaves. I guess
it's good tight end class, though. It's good tight end class.
Yeah, it is. But to your point, Mike, other than Tyler Warren and Loveland, are you counting on anybody being a day one starter? Probably not. They could help you.
Who was the first one?
Tyler Warren, obviously.
Oh, Warren, yeah. Well, he's going to be way off the board.
Yeah, he's not.
You like Mason Taylor or Arroyo? Arroyo's had some injury issues.
Well, I think
I love
help.
Mason Taylor. I'd be very happy if the Eagles got him.
I don't think Mason Taylor's a day one starter, can play the majority of the snaps type player, but I think he could help you right away as a part of a rotation.
Yeah.
But not Dallas Goedert when he's healthy.
Yeah. That's the issue with, after Warren, most of the guys, I guess you're wondering, can they come in and play and do what Goddard does? Catch and block. The problem the Eagles have after Goddard is right now, Calcaterra can catch the ball. You're not worried about him as a pass catcher. He's not a great blocker. You had Jack Stoll here. He's obviously not here anymore. He's in New Orleans, but he was the blocking guy. You brought these two other guys in here. They probably will battle for possibly a second or third spot on this team. But none of them are replacements for Goddard. And I wouldn't think Calcaterra is a replacement for Goddard as the starter. So you almost have to find now, are you okay bringing in a Mason Taylor, a Loveland, and saying you and Calcaterra are the tandem now, and Calcaterra just has a bigger role? They've won games without Goddard with Grant Calcaterra and insert EJ Jenkins or somebody else's name here. So they've said, look, where is the level of importance of the tight end in our offense? And that's another question. We don't know what Kevin Batula thinks of the tight end. We might have an idea.
Well, I'm sure he likes the tight, but my whole thing. Well, I brought this up, and I'm not blaming you. Everybody says it. They won it without everybody last year. They won without Jordan Mailata, but nobody's saying they didn't lose. They won 16 of 17 games. They won 4 games without Jordan Mailata. So I hear a lot of people say it about Dallas. Nobody's saying, hey, let's go with Fred Johnson. Let's bring Fred Johnson back, because everybody knows.
Well, and I will say, in the biggest moments when you need it, Goddard,
he was phenomenal.
In the playoffs, he was there against Green Bay.
Yeah.
He's the guy who makes the big play. In the Super, he's the guy. So he might not be a 17-game impactful part of your offense in terms of catching the ball, yardage, and stuff. But in the big moments, in the big games, when Green Bay and LA and Washington are saying, we've got to focus on A.J. Brown and Smith, we can't let them beat us. Can that guy be the guy who says, for this week, I am good enough to beat you? Goddard has been that guy.
Oh, yeah. He's a big-time tight end. Now, to your point.
Mason Taylor would be the guy, though, I think that I wouldn't be surprised.
See, here's where I don't even care. Like, I had him taking Mitchell Evans. 6'5", 260. It's the one guy on day 3. You don't have to spend a lot of money on him, spent a lot of draft capital on him. He's the one guy that can block. That's what your whole offense is based on. Piecemeal it. Get the big blocker. What is Mason Taylor going to do? He's your fourth option, maybe your fifth option. Get Jahan Dotson more involved. He might get traded, but Ibby's here. They don't get the ball to that guy anyway, and it's certainly not going to get the ball to that guy as a rookie. So get the guy who can help Saquon.
Well, that was a topic we talked about yesterday. You just threw out a little Dotson might get traded. Was that like a, hey, keep an eye on this? I haven't heard that one before, but I like that little slip in there, Johnny Mac.
Well, he's not. They're not going to pick up his fifth-year option, obviously. This is his last year in Philadelphia. He's obviously not a high-volume player. So how he did it with Kenny Pickett, he might do it with Jahan Dotson. Flip him while you can. Not going to get a lot.
No.
But
so the question was, you have Dotson, you brought in Terrace Marshall, and then you have the two guys you drafted last year, Johnny Wilson and Anaya Smith. Are those guys battling for a third wide receiver position, or are they looking to upgrade that spot on draft night? Not in round one, I would imagine.
No,
but
I've seen way too many people mock Luther Burden to the Eagles. Like, the Eagles aren't taking a wide receiver at the top of the draft. They might.
The hashtag no was out the minute that Jameson Williams was on the trade block yesterday. Not that I wouldn't take Jameson Williams, just you're not making that move.
Yeah, they just. I mean, as the Eagles play offense right now, and it could change, and it will change down the road. I mean, Jahan Dotson is a very good third receiver. Nobody knows it until he makes a big play in a big situation, because they don't get that player the ball. So, what if you can get something for him? He's not going to be here in 2026. I think that's the way Howie thinks, or could be thinking. Not saying he's going to get traded, and they brought in, who knows what Marshall has left, if he has anything left, if he had anything to begin with. But it's an easy sort of move.
He had a flash in Carolina. And listen, we talk about this with quarterbacks all the time, and we give them the benefit of the doubt. A guy like Sam Darnold, well, he's with the Jets. Their offense stinks. Rex Ryan's the coach. You go to Carolina. Well, look who they don't have any weapons for him. Terrace Marshall has not played with the most grandiosos offensive talent either. He was a high second-round pick who, has a lot of traits and tools that maybe, like many of these guys, just needs to be in the right situation or the right offense. He was a guy, man, I remember he had that one little year where he had like 500 and, a couple yards. He had some big weeks, and people were like, you got to get this guy. You got to trade. When the Eagles were really, this was
struggling at wide receiver.
The guy runs 4.3, 6'2". He went to LSU. He's a second-round pick. He played that offense with Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, and he's on the level of those guys. Well, he's here now. Let's see. The Eagles saw something in him to see if they can get more out of him than Carolina and Vegas could.
Mike, much anticipated round one tomorrow. We've been talking about it for months. What do you think the chances are that the Eagles even make a selection tomorrow? Think about it. They're sitting in the last pick of the night. Yeah. Howie loves to trade. It's a draft where everybody seems to want to trade back. What's it at? Is it a 50-50 that they pick tomorrow night? Are they even going to walk away with a player tomorrow night? What do you think?
I think something will happen for them tomorrow night, obviously. I don't know if it's them selecting at 32. It's, it might be them trading to get another picks on Friday. But the whole thing with the more picks on Friday is an interesting proposition because of they have 20 picks in the next two drafts. Are they going to bucket more draft choices? So that's why that does, wave a little bit of a red flag of, do you add more picks to the 20 that you already have? Because trading back would just add more picks. So is the most likely thing that you move up for that guy that we were banting about earlier? Is it, hey, we really have Mike Green high. He's fallen. We have the ammunition. Let's go get him. Hey, there's Walter Nolan. He's the guy we really want. We can't wait till 32. Let's move up. Let's go get him. He's at, what's that number? So I think something will So put it this way, Friday morning, you should be talking about something that will have the chat comments buzzing about what they did. And the whole weekend is going to be interesting. You know, they have the 4 picks in round 5. I would anticipate they don't make those picks in round 5. And don't be surprised, too, that if it is a fall flat, meaning we have 20 picks this year, we'll take future picks in 2027 because we don't really need to worry about 2025 and 2026. We're loaded in those 2 draft classes, but we want even more in 2027 and 2028. Those are the kind of drafts, those are the kind of trades that people just completely go crazy about. But think about that Sixer trade in 2020. 5 years later, that pick is now looming over that team. Don't be surprised if the Eagles try to do some future stuff because they are so loaded up.
It's an interesting point by you.
That's always been a Howie. Howie thinks it's a market inefficiency because other people don't value future draft picks as much as current draft picks. And he said, you know, that doesn't make any sense on any level. And he's right.
And
but
he has landed future first and future, you know, the Saints gave him the future first for 1 year, and that ended up blowing up in their face. So I wouldn't be surprised with the amount of picks they have. If their big move is we're ending up getting a future something that 3 years from now, we're having this conversation and saying, you remember that trade they made? And Mike Gill was sitting on his back porch and he said they get a 2028 first. There it is.
That's the thing. First. I mean, but here's what Howie, Howie has the ability to do that. I always say, because Howie has job security. Most GMs don't have job security. Absolutely. That's why they don't value future picks. Like Joe Shane, trust me, he does not value future picks because he's not going to be taking them.
And that is such a inefficient way to run your business. Is you can't make moves with an eye on your future because your future is not guaranteed.
Yeah, market inefficiency. That's why Howie sees it as that.
In a copycat league, the one thing that is crazy is that the amount of mistakes that Roseman has made, if other teams knew the hatred that people had for Roseman, they would persevere through the hate if they really trusted the guy they had. These people in power make these decisions and change their minds so quickly because of their own insecurities and the fan pressure. It's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable that the amount of people who have the money and the power who are so insecure with it that they have to change. You know, you got basketball teams paying 4 coaches, 3 GMs because they just simply can't put the trust in someone to say, hey, I trust it to hire you, but I don't trust enough to let you do the job.
Yeah, at Mike Gill Show. Make sure you follow Mike on the X platform, his YouTube channel as well. Subscribe there at Mike Gill Show 97.3, the Sports Bash, South Jersey. If you're local, best sports talk show in the Delaware Valley. That's what I say, not just because I'm on occasionally. I'll be on draft day, I believe, at 3:00. I'll be in the car probably, Mike, but I'll be there.
Yes.
And
up the show. I'm going to be out and about. If anybody's in the area, we'll be at Ocean at the gallery. We'll have the Super Bowl trophy with us. You can get your picture taken with the trophy. And we will be there all day, 2 to 6.
You're going to get the guy with the white gloves.
The white glove guy's coming out. Yes.
Yeah.
My guy, Nate.
There you go. Mike, thank you, brother. We appreciate you joining in. We'll talk to you next week, hopefully after a big NFL draft weekend. Thank you, brother.
All right, we'll see you.
Thanks, bud.
Mike Gill joining us here on Birds 365. Great job from Mike Gill. We're going to talk to Brandon Lee Goutman coming up in hour number 2 here at 9:20. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, we are getting closer to this thing, man. And, you know, I
forgot to lock down Mike. God, I wanted to lock him down. I just give him the option, but I'll try to text him. Trade up, stay put, 32. Trade up. Pick a player to trade up for if you got to stay put or if you trade down. Should have locked him down.